You're gonna come seated with your feet down on the mat, so the knees are up a little bit. You're gonna rock and find your sit bones. And just give yourself a really long spine. Hands in front of the shins for a moment and find that really, really tall spine. And just notice where in the body it starts to clench up, right? In your quads, in your hip flexors. Try and soften a little bit there. Bring a little more awareness into the torso, ribs pulling in to lift. Using your torso muscles to find some length in the spine, right? Broaden across the chest. Just gonna bring the hands forward. Palms are facing each other. Feet are still down. Notice if your knees are hanging out. Try and pull into the center line without squeezing in and caving in, keeping that length, awareness in the inseam of the legs. You're just going to start to push into the lower back. Bow out the lower back a little bit. And then roll down, all the way down to the mat. Feet are going to come in. Hands are going to come underneath the sit bones, or the hips, or underneath the lower back. Lower back is a little more challenging. If you need a little more support, we're going to do some core work, so your hands will stay under your hips. So from this position, you're just going to press down the lower back into the mat, or the lower back into the back of the hands, if that's where your hands have landed. Spread across the collarbones a little bit, shimmy around so that the shoulder blades are down on the mat. You're not pulling in, right? If you need to move your hands out from under the body to get some more space in your shoulders, find a place that you can draw the ribs in and push the lower back, draw the lower back down towards the mat without whacking out all the other parts of the body, right, in the upper torso. So from here, you're going to keep those ribs in, you're going to keep the lower back pushing down, you're going to start to lift your feet. So your knees are going to want to pull in, right? It's easier to hold that position, but you're going to push them out so the knees are right over the hips. Draw the ribs in, push the lower back down, and just start to feel how much more concentrated the strength is in the torso, right? We want to get low and deep into the belly. You're going to lift the shins to come parallel with the mat, and then notice how the knees wanted to pull in again, or move out. Bring the knees right over the hips, keep pressing down into the lower back, shift the torso around so you've got some space, right? Then you're going to point the toes, and just your right toes are going to reach down a little bit and tap down onto the mat, like you're testing the water of a lake to see if it's cold, and then lift back up. Ribs stay in, lower back stays down, left toes go down and tap, and then lift. You're just going to alternate right and left, and right and left. Your ribs are going to want to pop out. You're going to want to let go of the strength in the torso, but that's the part of the body that we're working here. Your shoulders are going to want to pull in, your chest is going to collapse. So you're going to work with just the torso as just this thigh bone is moving forward in the hip socket, right? Forward and back. So rather than reach the toes out long and release the leg, you're going to keep it bent. Rather than the heel towards the butt and tapping in, so it's really barely moving the leg at all, you're going to keep those shins parallel with the mat at that same angle, reaching forward and tapping. So you should start to feel this really low in the belly. If you're only feeling it in your hip flexors, give yourself a pause, shift around, push the lower back down into the mat, and find that awareness in the torso again rather than just the hip flexors. A few more rounds. Breathing, right? We're not holding our breath when we do this. Even out right and left, and then draw the knees into the chest. Give yourself a squeeze, a little rocking. We're going to stay on our backs. I'm just going to rock up and shifting that around a little bit. Stay on your backs and just keep rocking and releasing in the hip flexors a bit. You're going to bring your feet down and your hands underneath the body again. So underneath the hips. Lengthen through the spine, lower back is going to press down. Knees pull in. They can pull in a little bit more this time. Feet are going to go up and find nice long legs. Pressing down into the lower back again. So you're going to flex your feet this time. Your right heel's going to go forward and back, forward and down. Right, and just pause in this L shape. It may be more of a smaller angle, but that's okay. An L shape, lower back down, ribs in. Feel the strength in the torso as you hold your legs here. And then lift it back up. And then send the left heel down. Give yourself a couple of breaths. And lifting the leg back up. Inhaling, right heel down. Exhale, lift it back up. Inhale, left, and lift it back up. Right goes down on the inhale, maybe even point the toes, feel the shift in the muscles in the legs, and then heel goes down, point the toes to lift up, alternating side to side. One more set. Draw the knees into the chest, give yourself a squeeze, and release those hip flexors again. Right, maybe move the thighs around in the hip joint. Give it a couple more breaths. And then back into the same position, hands underneath the hips, feet go straight up. Flex the feet at the ankles so the toes draw back. Find that inseam of the legs. Keep the heels pushing forward and down, both legs at the same time. And then lift back up. Inhale. Exhale. Lower back pressing down. With your breath. Last two. Knees into the chest and release. Move those thigh bones around to release the hip flexors. Bring the soles of the feet together for a moment as they come down. Let the knees drop out. Just give yourself a little stretch. Hands like an L can come to the upper thigh. Press away. Feel a little release. Right when our torso muscles, our deep core muscles, aren't working as much as they should be in these movements and these exercises, our hip flexors take it on a lot. Give yourself a stretch. If you feel it in the low back, right, if your ribs were popping out, press that lower back down. Maybe draw the knees back into the chest. 2 more breaths, 3 more breaths of in between resting. Last breath in. And a breath out. Draw the knees up and in, and rock yourself up to seated. So the feet are going to come down on the mat again, just like where we started. Hands in front of the knees to press down and then lift. Find a straight spine. Really nice deep breaths, long breaths. Take a couple of breaths to just find that length, right? If you're curling in, move your feet forward or back. Rock on your sit bones to find a really straight spine. That's really important. Bring the arms forward. You're going to lean back a little bit. Right, shift your feet, ribs in, lower back's got to feel supported, so your ribs are in, tail's down, and the low belly is pulling back towards the spine. Lean back a little more, open the arms, breathe in, exhale, pull in. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, collarbones broad, exhale. Try not to curl in. Try to keep the same height 3 more times. And then lift, and then flop. Knees out to the side, just let the spine roll. You can move a little, or you can just flop down. Give it a few breaths. Feel, again, where the body is clenching, right? You're trying to release in between rounds here. We'll do a couple more of these. And then rolling yourself back up. Knees are going to come up, feet are going to come down. You're going to find your sit bones, hands on the legs to lift, and find a straight spine again. Lift the shoulders, open them up so the collarbones spread. Start to lean back, fingers forward. Give yourself a couple of breaths just to shift, right? If we came back and we're clenching already in some weird place, we want to just lift out of it and come back in so that we start from a place that's safe for our low back, for our hip flexors, ribs in, belly towards the spine. Lean back a little more. Inhale, open the arms. Exhale together. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Maybe lean back just a little more. 6, 10, and lift and flop. Move it around a little bit, shift, releasing tension again, right? Feel where your body is overcompensating or even protecting, right? Protecting weaker muscles in the core. But then the hip flexors, the back overworks, and we don't want that. So loosen them up, send breath where it needs to go. We're going to do one more round of those. Rolling back up, knees come back up. Find a steady seat, right, where you can lengthen the spine. Right, again, we're starting each round from a place that's safe for our back. We don't want to be popping ribs out because then when we lean back, it's all in our lower back. So you need to draw the ribs in, tail rooting down, feeling that support in the back, sides, and front of the torso. Really nice and deep in. Not superficial muscles, not those top muscles, but the ones much deeper in. Lower, and spread the collarbones. Inhale, open. Exhale together. Inhale, exhale. Try to keep the torso level and the collarbones broad. Keep going. Hug those inner thighs in. 5, 4, 3, 2, last one, and lift and flop. Shift around again. Nice deep breaths, softening, sending breath where it needs to go in your body, moving, subtle movements to just take a little extra tension out. All right, last little bit here. Knees are going to come up. You're going to lean back, hands behind the thighs this time. You're going to start to bring the toes in to lift. Toes are lifted, right? Hands go forward. Maybe you lower halfway down and straighten the legs, bend them as you come back up. Just 3, and 2, and 1, and flop. Let yourself just fold in and relax, lengthening the lower back, softening in the hips. Draw the shoulders away from the ears and soften.